Hey, look at that. Welcome, all several of you who will watch this in your lifetimes. Today we will be drawing Satsuki Kiryuin from Kill la Kill. I couldn't figure out what to draw, so I asked someone what their favorite character was, and this is what they said, so that's why we're drawing this. Okay, so we're gonna draw this the way I draw it, which is not the way the original creator draws it. It's in my style. But the beautiful thing about these characters is they have such unique features that you can draw them very much in your own style and they're still recognizable. Okay. So this overall shape here doesn't do me much good. I tend to change that shape a lot in time, but I just use it to start. Okay, so she has a longer face, at least in that artist style, of course, with more pointed features. Now these corners aren't super pointed or anything, but compared to how I would normally draw, they're relatively pointy. So this is pretty much how I start my characters, as I block in the basic head shape. And I always put in the neck. And for this tutorial, we're only going to be doing her head and shoulders. So we're just going to get those in. I always spend time on the ear just for funsies, but I don't intend her ear to even be visible by the end of this. Okay. So because I am no master, at this point I think, hey, that looks good. I flip it, see what the overall shape looks like. For now, I think it looks decent, but that could easily change once I start putting the eyes in. Let's get to it here. So at this point, the next step, I always go for the basic eye placement. I never draw the hair first. And anatomy would tell you that the eyes are roughly here in this line, because the top of the ear is the brow, bottom of the ear is the nose, like so. And I sort of follow that. I start with it, and then, whatever looks best in the end is what I go with. I don't feel as though I must follow such rules. 100%. Gotta follow them a bit, or else it looks terrible. Okay, so I start with this eye on this side, just because. Now she has, in the show, her eyes are much more, angled like this. So I'm going to go for a bit of that. Just throw in the shape here. Now, I don't necessarily think this is going to work out, but I'm not going to change anything to this until I put the other eye in. It's about here. And I've noticed a very common thing in anime drawings is to have this eye is going to be much closer to the ear than it should be, and that took me a long time to figure out, because I'm looking at drawings as analyzing it, why is this the way it is, and then finally I realized, like, oh, they're totally ignoring the official placement of the eyes here. Because if you wrap this around, this distance is nothing. Anyway. So another thing that makes this character, or this style rather, to help portray it as a recognizable character is, instead of doing a rounded iris, throw in more pointed ones, like so. Keep that slant for the highlight as well, just cause. I don't know if that's even a thing in the manga or the show, but that's how I do it here. And of course, I might have to change the angle of this, which, if I was drawing traditionally, I might be more careful, but, inside I can just change stuff really easily. Makes you lazy and makes you kind of not focus on your mistakes, but it is convenient. Okay, so this eye is out of control. We'll at least make it bigger here. Throw in the eyebrows. She's got some serious eyebrows that are actually kind of difficult to draw, just because I never draw eyebrows like this. She's a rather angry person, so they're nice and pointed down here. And then over here, we're going to have this one. Try to get it at a similar angle. Might erase this bit a little to help with the curving it on her head there. And then she also has a pointy nose. Quite sharp. Certainly is not a subtle nose that I normally would draw. Feeling it about there. And then the mouth. This is just kind of how I draw mouths. Just put it in there. Same thing as with the nose, I just move it around until I feel it. Okay. So now the disappointing part. Just when you think everything is going quite well, flip it. And now this looks like a grumpy man, which I anticipated might happen in using the kind of shapes that she tends to have. So now the goal for pretty much the rest of the first stage of shaping everything is to make her somehow a bit cuter. Quite difficult to do for me with these sharp exaggerations and huge pointy eyes. I think one thing I might do is raise the apex of the cheek a bit here. Maybe there. And just shape it out. Oh, it's not working out. But we'll see. I tend to edit the facial structure a good bit after I get the hair in. Okay, so one thing I do, I start with the ear in a more or less proper placement, but I've never been a fan of the way it looks. So I will lower them down a bit here. So let's move on. Let's take our eyes. We'll change those a bit, move them a little lower, see how that looks. Push them together a bit. Because it looks fine if I was drawing any other character. Just because I'm drawing her, I'm trying to figure out what I can do to make it look just right. When I'm creating my own characters, it's much easier because there's no preset look for them. Maybe that's why I never do fan art. Okay. So we'll move on from here. Let's start with the hair. She's got a nice low point that comes in here with some rather squared off breaks. Going up. Basically the angle of the eyebrows will go with. That's what I do with normal. I didn't study her too much when I did this. I just drew her a few times, decided that's good enough. But it looks like her. That's the point. The point is to have it look like the character you want, so people say, oh, that's that character, but they know that you drew it. When it's too perfect, a lot of people might question whether you traced it or not. And what's the point? I prefer drawing things in my style. I prefer seeing fan art done in other artists' styles. Okay, her hair comes down in relatively straight, chopped, strandy beals, and then bring it over here, floating it above the scalp. Now, one thing in this character, I feel like the shape of her head is, where it's a point in the back. So that's what I got the hair kind of exaggerating that overall shape. But of course, when I flip it, I'll probably end up changing it a bunch. Anyway, I really like to default to the hair on one side coming in front of the shoulder and then resting on it and going backwards. This would indicate that it comes down, it folds, and then it goes up and over the shoulder and falls down on her back. Okay, so now check out the shape of the hair. I'll get rid of the ear and bits of jaw that I'm going to have covered. Give it the old flip. I don't mind it as is. However, I want to change this part of her jaw. Its extremity is characteristic of the character, however, it's not how I do things. So I'm going to just curve it up a little bit there. Make this shadow a bit darker here. Now, of course, this is a sketch. This is stage 1. For finished drawing, everything gets refined, and then the line art stage still changes things. I kind of feel like her face is still too big. But it doesn't look bad, so I don't know if I'm going to ruin it by changing it here. Okay, let's just move on here. Alright, so get rid of the scalp shape. Get rid of these lines that'll be behind the hair here. And it's not perfect, and I drew, the first one I drew, which I'll show you at the end, I think is the best one. It just looks most like her while still looking like my style. But instead of trying to just copy that one, instead I just draw again, so you can just see that if you have the element of the character, you can draw it with those elements how you want. It's still that character. You don't have to make it look perfect. Alright, almost done here. Last thing we're going to do is just add her top bit of her top. She's got a collar that comes up on her neck. It's like a school uniform that you'll see in anime and everything, mixed with maybe some sort of military general type garb. She's got her danglies here. And then just curve these down and out. I'm not going to draw the rest of her body, but you got a hint that it does exist. Curve these back in. This is like a stripe she has where it's two stripes that come up like this and go up on this top edge here. And then this part of the stripe isn't quite on the edge. And that comes out, it's, you know, that thing. And then just get rid of some of the shoulder shapes that you wouldn't see anymore. And hair. That's pretty much it. I'm just gonna... She has dark hair, and in the sketch phase, if I want to show the dark hair in the sketch, this is all I do. Just rough color in the... Here, I'll give it a classic anime highlight. Instead of some fancy stuff. And there you are. If you want, you can do some shading. That's over the shoulder, the neck's already shaded, there's a little bit of shading here, you know. Maybe the hair is casting a shadow right here. But beautiful thing about a super cartoony anime style like this is you can get away with not much shading, not much else, and it still looks good, in my opinion. So I'm going to condense all these layers get it out of the way. Now, I think this looks like her enough. You know, angry anime girl. She's not super pretty or anything, but the first one I did, as you can see, the shapes are quite different. But if you cover one, looks like her. Cover the other, it looks like her. This one I just think has a better combination of cuteness with her pointy shapes and everything. But that's pretty much it. Hopefully this helps and you can follow along and master it and show me that you can draw it better than I can in a day. That's all. Thank you for watching.